First story. OP caused a war between his family and his brother's wife's homophobic family with one innocent message. So my brother's wedding happened 2 days ago. And it turned into complete chaos, which I know even though I wasn't there. You might wonder why I didn't attend the wedding if it was my brother's. Well, it's because of his wife's family. He did send me an invitation to the wedding because he wanted me there, but his fiancée told him I couldn't attend because I had a boyfriend. You might be confused, but I'm a man. I am a bisexual man, to be exact, and I have a boyfriend who I wanted to bring to the wedding, she said, even though she doesn't have a problem with that, and he doesn't have a problem with that. Her extremely religious parents, who already forced her to do the wedding in a church, would most likely ban us from the wedding and cause trouble between our families. After she told him that my brother told me I couldn't attend, she told me why. You might think I was angry. The truth is, I was relieved. I hate going to big events with lots of people because of my social anxiety, and I was already used to not being able to attend certain events because of my sexuality, so it was nothing I hadn't heard before. So on the day of the wedding, I stayed at home with my boyfriend. It's worth mentioning that my parents apparently didn't know I wasn't attending the wedding. I was chilling at home, cuddling with my boyfriend, when I suddenly got a text message from my parents asking me where I was because they couldn't find me at the wedding party. I told them I wasn't attending the wedding, and if my brother hadn't told them anything, they said no and asked me what happened. I didn't see any reason to lie, so I sent them a text message telling them exactly why. Now I have to admit that I don't exactly know what happened after I sent them this message because they read it, but didn't reply. And why do they care in the first place? They didn't notice I wasn't there until the wedding was already over. They only noticed when the wedding party started. However, apparently, my parents talked to my brother about it, and all of a sudden, my absence was the main topic of the wedding party. From what I heard, two fronts formed. On the one hand, my parents and the rest of my family were against the family of my brother's wife, and apparently he, as a husband, now felt compelled to take her side and tried to argue in her favor. It's crazy to think that I was just sitting at home living my best life with my boyfriend, while all of that SHT went down on his wedding. The wedding party was ruined, and my brother appeared on my door, angrily screaming at me why I felt the need to ruin his wedding. I was confused and asked him what happened, and he told me everything. I told him it wasn't my intention. I just told our parents what happened because they didn't know and wanted to know where I was, and I thought he told them beforehand. He screamed at me that I had ruined his wedding. I told him it wasn't my fault. He wasn't honest with them. I just respected their wish to not attend the wedding. I couldn't know it would go down like this because, like I said, I couldn't attend several events before because of my sexuality, and my parents never said anything about it. So I thought it would be the same thing here. But I got to admit, it's kind of sweet that my parents and the rest of my family stood up for me. They haven't done it before. That's a more than welcome change. But I still feel kind of bad because apparently I really ruined the wedding party. Comments. Your mom infinity. You didn't do anything. You just explained the situation. Every action following that was a grown-up adult choosing their own actions, just going with it. And the snowball effect landed a big arse golden egg right on his lap as it passed by to run the wedding over. Keyboard static. His brother is so stupid not to even realize that his wife ruined the wedding the second she told him his brother wasn't welcome. But he comes and screams at his brother. What a pathetic mess of a person. Update 1. 1 day later. I didn't think I'd give an update, but many interesting things happened. So after my brother visited his wife, he went on a honeymoon. And the way the wedding party went might have been even worse than I imagined. What happens now is incredible. When I said in the main post that two fronts had formed, I only meant that metaphorically, of course, but it's no longer that. While nothing much interesting happened in the first 2 days afterwards, the terror started as soon as my brother and his wife went on their honeymoon. My mom and my dad visited me and told me how the wedding party escalated and how they were so close to physical violence. I thought it was funny at first, but this truly bothers me. I also want to point out that you did a great job convincing me that it was not my fault, but hearing from my parents' side still gave me a bad feeling in my stomach. However, like I said, the terror started shortly after they went on their honeymoon. And when I say terror, I mean that my Sills family found both my Facebook and Instagram accounts and started spamming me with hateful messages. I received insults and hateful messages from various different accounts that all had one thing in common. They all had somewhat of a Christian theme, and all of them had the same last name. So it wasn't hard to find out whose account it was. Mainly because I don't know my Sills family at all. I only know her, and I know her parents were homophobic Christians. But whatever. They not only started attacking me, they also found the account of my boyfriend over my account because we're linked as a couple and started to send him the same messages. The messages contained on one side are typical bigot stuff like, "You're burning in hell for your sins." One even called me and my boyfriend two devils in disguise. On the other side, there were just blatant insults. You get the idea. I called my parents and told them what they were doing. Then I sent a text message to my brother with screenshots of the messages his wife's family sent me, to which he replied that I shouldn't disturb him with that during his honeymoon, as I already destroyed his wedding party. I couldn't believe it. He was just like them. He did send me an apology after my mom told me she called him. But none of this is the main reason I'm giving you this update this early. I got a call this morning from an unknown number. I hesitated because I thought it was one of them. And I was right. But it was none of the people who insulted me. I heard a woman's voice who introduced herself as the half-sister of my brother's wife. She said it didn't go unnoticed what her family was doing, and she wanted to apologize for them. I told her I'm not going to tell anyone in her family about this, and that I don't blame her for her family's actions. She thanked me and hung up. I don't know why, but I had this feeling she only did this to protect her family from being reported. My mother wrote to me earlier that she wants to report the insults and harassment of these people, and that she demands that my brother divorce his wife, or she will disinherit him from her will, because that's not how she raised him. She's a little radical in my opinion, but I understand where she's coming from. This entire thing escalated so much that it was unbelievable. Thank y'all for your support on my first post. Comments. Mr. Mountain Times. I can't wait for the next update. Let your mom be the mama bear. You two really could be in danger given how these people are acting. Your brother needs a serious wake-up call. Stay safe, OP. I would start keeping some pepper spray on you. Zenna Serenity. As a mom, her actions are justified. My son is right next to me, and I know for a fact that I would disown him if he did any of this SHT, as much as it would break my heart. OP's brother has shown his true colors, and I bet she's devastated. Update 2. 11 days later. It's been a few days. First of all, me and my boyfriend are fine. Luckily for us, they didn't go any further than their text messages. My mom filed a report against them. I don't know the current situation about that, as I haven't filed the report myself. The reason I updated you is a different one. First of all, one person in my Sills family is actually going to testify in my favor and against her family. It really takes courage to do so. It's the same person who called me in the last update. Somehow, they found out that she was into women. There is no reason to hide it anymore. However, she said she's fine and is going to stay at a friend's house. I have so much respect for what she does. Imagine the strength you need to testify against your own family. I now feel bad for assuming she only called me to protect her family from being reported. More importantly, what is the current situation with my brother? Well, my mom talked to him and told him to leave his wife, or she would disinherit him from her will. He decided to stay with his wife, and my mom made her threat come true. He's no longer in her will. My father did the same. When I visited them, I also told them that I wished that this entire situation had gone differently. They assured me it was not my fault, but I feel like if it weren't for me, then my family wouldn't be ripped apart like this. I haven't talked to my brother since then. My boyfriend feels similar. He also told me he kind of feels responsible for all this chaos. I assured him it was not his fault. But honestly, I wasn't even sure if I could say this in my position. On the other hand, it was my Sills family bigotry that ruined everything, and everything would have been fine if I could have just attended. But now it's time for me to grow distant from this situation. We will see what the report will do. I followed your advice to document everything. The insulting and harassing messages continued until 2 days ago, so I have much to say about them. Unfortunately, homophobia is still very much normalized in our society. I already said it in a post in my profile, but the reason I'm so calm and casual about the situation is the simple fact that I'm used to situations like this. They don't get to me anymore. If I let any insult get to me, I wouldn't make it for a long time. It's a coping mechanism. I've been in situations where I was sent to the hospital because I kissed my boyfriend in public. So insults and harassment like theirs are nothing I haven't seen before. I want to say thank you for all your support on my first 2 posts. Comments. No Rub 18314. Wow, your brother should be ashamed of himself. He married a homophobic witch, and he's staying with her, knowing what she and her family think of you. He deserves his karma with that toxic family. I'm sorry you and your boyfriend are suffering due to them. Best of luck for the future. Samuel Vinestrain. I think he secretly or not agrees with their ideology of hate. Sad. Update 3. 2 months later. I think some of y'all are waiting for an update, so here I am. Keep in mind that this update will probably be the last one. So last time I told you, my mother was pressing charges against them, and to my surprise, we won. They weren't going to jail or anything, but they had to pay for their actions. Literally. There was one incident where my SIL dad was actually trying to find out where I lived and asked my brother, who told him. Only God knows what he would have done to us if we still lived there. But in the span of the last 2 months, me and my boyfriend moved to a different place, which my brother didn't know anything about. Also, their social media accounts were deleted. However, I don't know if this was part of their punishment, or if they did it themselves. My mom has also carried out the threat towards my brother and disinherited him from her will. After he came back from his honeymoon, he begged her to put him in again. She said only if he apologized to me. She invited me and my boyfriend over, and my brother sat in the living room with this mad look on his face. She made him apologize, but I didn't accept this apology because I could tell it wasn't sincere. He did it because he had to, not because he was actually sorry. I told my brother that I was disappointed in him for who he became. Before that, we had this huge bond. We usually never judge each other for stuff like this, and all of a sudden, he has such a problem with me having a boyfriend. I just don't get it. I told him that I missed the old him. He didn't respond to anything. He just sat there, quietly staring at the bottom. After I finished, he just got up and left. This was the last time I spoke with him, and it's already been a few weeks since this happened. My parents have paid much more attention to the discrimination I faced since this incident. They wanted to learn more about the problems I face as a queer person. I really love them. My dad even got a bisexual pride flag for me and asked if he could hang it in our bedroom. I love that I have such great parents. I just wished for my brother to become the person he once was. BTW, since the case with my SIL's family is over, I didn't hear anything about their lesbian daughter. She supported us during the process, but we lost contact afterwards, and I just hope she's fine. Comments. Corfus74. Wow, that your brother gave his Phil your address, knowing full well that he meant to do you harm. That would have ended it for me. No coming back from attempted assault or murder by proxy. Reconnect. Yeah, I agree. The moment I read that I basically regarded him as irredeemable, the fact that your parents would still have him in their will after just an apology makes me feel like they are wonderful people. Sad to see such an incident take place, but glad you could learn you have such supportive parents, OP, and I'm sorry for the loss of your brother in the sense that he's chosen this hill. Update. 8 months later. The final update to my story happened 6 months ago, and I figured some of you might be interested in how things are currently going. So I'm back, at least for this post right now. There have been some things that have happened. First of all, I want to give you an update about the sister of my brother's wife. Around 2 months after my update, she texted us and asked if she could come over. We talked for a while, and I was relieved to find out that she was fine. She said that she moved in with her girlfriend when the case was over, simply because her parents and the rest of her family had disowned her and threatened her with physical violence if she dares to return. However, the relationship with her girlfriend ended after a while, and she asked us if she could stay for a few days until she found something. She stayed with us for 2 weeks. During that time, my parents visited us and offered her to stay with them because they had a big house with some free space. She stays there currently because she wants to study, and my parents had no problem letting her stay a little longer. Me and my boyfriend also support her financially a little bit. We included her in several different celebrations, such as Christmas and New Year's Eve, and I feel like she is like the sister I never had. What's probably more interesting for you is how my brother is currently doing. The truth is, I don't know exactly. We haven't talked since the apology. However, he actually tried to attend our Christmas celebration party, but the moment he appeared, my dad kicked him out and said, "This homophobic rubbish is no longer allowed in my house." I love him. Oh, by the way, of course, both went through with disowning him. My boyfriend and I are still together, and I feel like he might be the one I want to marry. This entire situation made our bond so much stronger. I plan on proposing to him, but there are so many ideas floating around in my head for the proposal that I can't really decide which one. Also, the social media accounts of my SIL's family had disappeared entirely. All of them, but I assume the already made new ones have a new name. I'm just glad all of this is finally over. I don't have any compassion left for my brother. I just wish he had never developed this way. Everything that happened to him, he brought on himself. If you guys want, I can update you when I'm engaged. Thanks for reading. I wish you all the best. Comments. Valuable Pace 194. Be sure to also hire security at your future wedding, in case your brother, his wife, and his in-laws try to boycott it in any shape or form if they somehow find out where it'll take place. OP. I never thought about that, but it is true. If someone would try to do something like this as revenge, it would be them. I keep this in mind. Pasquis. From all this chaos that your brother, his wife, and Illinois caused, At least something good came out. Helping another person. I'm glad she came to you guys, a safe place to be and have support. Those people are the worst hypocrites in this world, acting like they are saints. Live your best life and leave the haters behind. One day, your brother will open his eyes, but nothing will be the same. Second story. OP's family wants to reconnect after 6 years. So this is a long story. And English is not my first language. Please bear it with me. These are all fake names. I 45M was married to my high school sweetheart, Sarah 45F. We had 4 daughters, Jane 24F, Tori 22F, Brianna 21F, and Claire 18F. I met Sarah when we were 14, and we started dating right away. My parents loved Sarah, and she became like the daughter they never had. I remember my father sitting me down and giving me advice: have good communication with others. Think before you make any decision, that type of stuff. Me and Sarah were dating for 7 years when we found out she was pregnant with Jane. We were both over the moon, got married soon after, and went on to have our beautiful family. The only problem was my brother Jack 43. Jack always had a crush on Sarah. It kind of harmed my relationship with him, but I tried to let it go because he was my brother, and because Sarah also knew and had reassured me that she didn't have feelings for him. My limit was when Jack found out about mine and Sarah's engagement. He confessed his love for her and tried to convince her to leave me. She didn't and told me. At this point, I was mad at Jack, and I was ready to kick his arse if Sarah asked me not to. I was ready to cut my brother out of my life, but it took Sarah and my parents 68M and 66F to convince me not to. My marriage with Sarah was amazing. We had, like any other couple, our ups and our downs, but I wouldn't change anything about it. We were a passionate couple who loved each other and their children more than anything. Mine and my brother's relationship improved after the incident, and I truly believed he had gotten over his crush on Sarah. Little did I know that he didn't only still have a crush on Sarah, but was also planning to break us up. One day, more than 6 years ago, I arrived home after a week away due to job reasons and found my daughters, my wife, and my brother in the living room. Sarah and my daughters were crying, and when they saw me, they started to scream at me. Sarah asked, "How could you have done this to me?" When I asked what she meant, she said, "Cheating." I was surprised she accused me of cheating. Never in the 25 years we had been together had I cheated on her. I asked what made her believe I cheated on her. She showed me some pictures and texts that proved I had cheated on her with a colleague. I asked where she got this proof, and my brother jumped in, saying that this co-worker, who was also friends with him, had confessed to him and sent him the proof. I started crying and begged Sarah to believe me. I told her that this was Jack's doing. She slapped me in the face and kicked me out. Before I left, Jane and Tori called me all kinds of names. The one who hurt me the most was, "You are a disgrace to our family." For a long time, I tried to make Sarah and the girls see reason, and to make them understand that I would never cheat. But sadly, it was all in vain. My parents disowned me, and my dad said if I were a man, I would make the divorce easy. Before the end of the year, me and Sarah were already divorced, and my daughters didn't want to see me. In the beginning of 2017, when Sarah and Jack got married, my daughters sent me a message saying that they hated me and didn't want anything to do with me, and that they had a new father figure in their lives. It was hard, but with a lot of therapy, I learned to move on. I always held on to the hope that my family would find the truth, but I learned to live with the possibility that they never would. 5 years went by without any contact with anyone from my family until a few days ago. I received a call from an unknown number, and when I picked it up, I said, "Hello, who's this?" And I heard sobs from the other side. It was my mom. She said they were sorry and wanted to meet me. I asked why, and my mom said my family had found the truth about everything. But this was a matter to be discussed personally. I told my mom that when or if I felt ready to meet them, I would call her. But I didn't want to be contacted by anyone until or unless I said something back. She told me she understood and that she missed me. We said our goodbyes, but to be honest, I still don't know what I should do. Update. A few people have asked me for an update, so here it is. So I arrived at my parents' house on Saturday morning. I rang the door, and my mom opened it. She started crying and hugged me. It was a bit awkward for me. My dad gave me a handshake, and I got in. My mom started to try to make small talk. She asked me how I was. She then commented that I looked way better, and that I had lost weight. I replied, "When you're depressed, you forget to eat." I then asked how they found out. My mom said that Jack was drunk and had an argument with Sarah, saying, "I didn't plan all this, so I would take your SHT." Sarah then forced him to confess. Sarah and my daughters wanted to contact me. but my mom said it would be better if she just contacted me. I started laughing. My dad was a little mad and asked me, "What's so funny?" I said that my brother probably spent years trying to separate me and Sarah and blew it all up. All he had to do was be quiet, and he could continue with his beautiful life. I then asked my parents if they could imagine how our lives would be if they and Sarah didn't try to forgive my brother after he tried to convince Sarah to run with him. My dad started crying. It was the first time in my 45 years of life that I had seen my old man cry. He started to apologize, saying he was an awful father, but that he, my mom, Sarah, and my daughters were all sorry. I was able to not cry, and I told them that I would love to reconcile, but it would take time. My mom asked me if she could give Sarah the green light to contact me, and I said yes. They then asked more about my life, as they wanted to know how I was doing. Overall, it was better than I expected. The next day, Sarah sent me a message and asked me if she could call me. I replied a few hours later that she could. Not even 5 minutes later, she called me. She asked me how I was, and I told her that given the circumstances, I could be worse. I asked how she and our daughters were, and she said that they were not so good. After my brother confessed, Sarah and my daughters felt remorseful and kicked my brother out. I asked Sarah a few questions. Why did she marry Jack so quickly? And how come she didn't believe me? She started crying. She said that during and after our divorce, my brother had been her rock. Sarah said that they eventually started dating, and they got married because, and I was shocked to hear this, she got pregnant. I was a bit taken back when I heard it. I asked if she could repeat it, and she did. I told her that I needed time, and I warned that the chances of us getting back together were not looking good, and I didn't want her to have false hopes. She cried a bit more, but I understood. She ended the conversation with, "I love you." I just said goodbye. Update 2. My mom was the bridge of communication between me and my daughters. I messaged her that I wanted to meet my daughters in a public place, and she recommended a park, and we met yesterday. When I got there, my daughter had already arrived. I only had a few seconds to process seeing them for the first time in more than half a decade, because Jane, my 24-year-old, jumped on me. She was crying, kept saying she was sorry, and asked me not to hate them. We stayed hugged for a few minutes. It seemed like she didn't want to let me go. It took Claire, my 18-year-old, to take Jane off me. Tori, my 22-year-old, asked me how I was. I looked at her for a few seconds. I was still surprised to see how much she had grown in the last few years, but I also kind of saw the last 6 years flashing through my eyes. For a while after the divorce, I used to look at pictures of me, Sarah, and the girls together, remembering the good old days, and start wondering if living was still worth it. After a few seconds, I told Tori that I had gotten a cat. I said that he was a great cat and my best friend, and if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here speaking to her. As soon as I said this, all my daughters started crying. I was looking at them, crying on the inside, but somehow still able to maintain my posture. They all said they were sorry for not believing me and begged me to forgive them. I told them I still loved them more than anything, but it would take time for me to truly forgive them, and they would have to show me by their actions, and not their words, how sorry they were. I noticed Jane was wearing a ring, and I asked her about it. She told me she had gotten married to her longtime boyfriend 2 years ago. At this point, I was about to burst into tears, knowing I had missed my daughter's wedding. I just asked if he walked down the aisle, and she quietly said yes. I just couldn't do it anymore and started crying my heart out. I had to sit down. That a hole stole everything I held dear and robbed me of one of the moments I was longing the most for, walking my daughter down the aisle. I was ugly crying, and I could tell Jane was sad as well. I told her that I would get over it and not to worry about it. She just hugged me again silently. We stayed like that for what seemed like a long time. After we broke off the hug, Jane said she was sorry once again. I told my daughters that I needed a few days, but I would like to go on family therapy with them, and they agreed. Me and my daughters were catching up on each other's lives, and it felt good to have a normal conversation with them. They gave me their phone number, we said our goodbyes, and I hugged every single one of them tightly for a long time. Update 3. I would like to start by thanking everyone for their support. A user has been messaging me, and his input on my situation has been very helpful. I explained to him that Jack was always praised by our parents due to his grades, and that he was somewhat competitive. This user believed that my brother could be a narcissist and saw Sarah and my daughters as trophies. Me and my daughters attended therapy last Saturday. I got in first and explained to the therapist my concerns about Jack being a narcissist. She told me my concerns could be right, but they were not certain. My therapy session was a bit emotional, but good. I started by explaining how I felt during all this time, and how many nights I cried, missing Sarah and the girls. how I had nightmares, and how hard it was all for me. My daughters did talk, but it was not easy to understand their words. They were crying the whole time, and it got worse as time went by, to the point where I had to calm them down and reassure them that I was not mad at them. The session ended, and we will attend our second session next Friday. Although I still don't know what will happen, I am hopeful that I can rebuild my relationship with my girls. Also, I had dinner with my daughters on Tuesday. It went well, and they had the chance to meet my cat. They also brought copies of pictures of us. It was a nice gift. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.